Hi, I'm Jessica, and 2 years ago, I did something that I really, really regret. I started lying to my own dad. And to make things worse, it was to cover up that my mom was cheating on him. It was the worst decision of my life. Let me tell you what happened. It has always been just my parents and me. I never minded being an only child as I had lots of friends. Dad worked as a waiter and mom was a secretary. We never had much money, but we got by and were happy. But all that changed a couple of years ago when my parents started to argue. They wouldn't do it in front of me. They would do it in different rooms or when they thought I was out. But I'm not stupid. I knew they were arguing and I hated it. I used to play loud music or slam doors just to get them to shout at me instead of each other. Dad, especially, was so horrible to mom. She was always crying, and he never seemed to care. It got so bad that I used to hate being at home. I stayed around my friends' houses as often as I could. But Dad would constantly be calling me up to ask when I was coming home and who I was with. I wished he would just leave me alone. One night, I was staying around my friend Claire's house in the next town. I really liked her house as her parents were really chilled and never argued, unlike mine. That night, they took us out for a meal at a nice restaurant. When we were in there, I saw a woman at the bar with her back to me who looked kind of familiar. She was whispering in a man's ear and holding his hand. As she leaned back, I saw her face. I couldn't believe what I saw. The woman was my mom, and the man she was holding hands with wasn't my dad. She was laughing and looked happier than I had seen her in a long time. Then the man touched her hand and they kissed. I felt sick. My mom was cheating on my dad. I couldn't eat any more of my meal, and Claire's parents could tell that something was wrong. I lied and said I didn't feel very well. They quickly finished the meal and took me back to their house. The next day at home, I was really quiet, and Mom could tell that something was wrong. She asked me if I was okay again and again until I blurted out that I had seen her with a man. She laughed and told me it wasn't her and I was making it up, but I knew she was lying. The next evening, she told me and Dad that she was going to go and visit a friend. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway, and I got on my bike and followed her. I pedaled as fast as I could until her car drove fast into the distance, and I lost sight of her. I circled around for an hour, going up and down the streets until I saw her car on a driveway. I stopped outside, walked up to the drive, and rang the doorbell. As I waited for an answer, I kind of felt stupid. What if it was just a friend's house, as she had said? While I was thinking, the door opened and a man answered the door. It was the same man she had been with at the bar. I was right. My mom was cheating. I called loudly for my mom to come outside. The neighbors were turning on their lights and looking out of the windows, but I didn't care. Mom ran to the door and pulled me into the house, shutting the door behind her. I screamed and shouted at her and called her a liar and a cheat. Eventually, she managed to calm me down and explained that the man, Paul, was just her friend. Paul brought me a glass of water and asked me if I was okay. He told me that he was helping Mom out with the bills as she worked so hard and struggled so much for money as Dad had got her into debt. I couldn't believe it. Paul seemed like a nice guy who really cared about my mom. As I was sitting in Paul's living room, my phone rang. It was my dad. I answered the phone and he started shouting at me, asking if I knew where my mom was and she wasn't at work. He sounded so angry and he was taking it out on me. I looked at Mom, who was sitting on the sofa holding Paul's hand. I didn't know what to do. I loved my dad, but Paul seemed to make Mom so happy. So I made a decision. I lied to my own dad. I told him that I was at school and Mom was with me. I made up a story saying that I was in the nurse's room as I had hit my head and they had called Mom to come and collect me. Dad believed my story and hung up the phone. I felt disgusted with myself. I had lied to my own dad to protect my mom. Paul and Mom told me I had made the right choice, but I wasn't so sure. The next day, it was like nothing had happened. I had got away with my terrible lie. Then that evening, Mom told me that she wanted to go see Paul. Dad was working a late shift at work and wasn't home. She told me that I had to cover for her. I went to my room. I felt so sick. I couldn't believe what she had asked. When Dad came home and asked where Mom was, I lied and said that she had gone to a friend's house. He believed me, but I couldn't believe that I had lied to my own dad again. The next day, I told Mom I couldn't lie for her again. I didn't think it was right for her to be friends with another man and keep it a secret. Mom surprised me by saying she wasn't going to see Paul anymore. She told me that our family was her first priority and she would do anything to stay together. But she told me that she needed help with something else and needed me to lie for her again. She then admitted that she had taken a second job but wasn't going to tell Dad. That would mean that she would get to keep all of the money that she had made and would use it to get us out of debt. She said that I needed to keep her secret so she could help our family. Of course, I would help Mom. Over the next couple of weeks, Mom went out most nights to go to her job, and I helped lie to Dad about where she was going. She got so used to me helping her lie that soon she wasn't even bothering to speak to Dad. She was just going out and letting me lie for her. But Dad soon stopped believing me. He would call her and leave voicemails shouting at her, telling her to come home. I couldn't believe that Mom was out trying to earn money to help our family, and he was just trying to stop her. Then one night, Dad sat me down and told me that he was moving out. I was furious. I picked up a vase and chucked it at the wall, where it smashed, spilling shards of glass and water all over the carpet. I couldn't believe that Dad was going to leave Mom. Why wouldn't he fight for her? I ran out of the house and refused to speak to him. When I got back late that night, Dad had gone. When Mom came home, I told her that she needed to call Dad and ask him to come back home. But Mom didn't seem upset at all. She told me how much easier things would be now that he had left. I was so upset. I thought Mom wanted to make our family work. I ran out of the house again and spent the night around my friends. Early the next morning, I went home before school to apologize to Mom. As I got there, I saw someone in the backyard leaving the house. It was a man. He snuck out of the back gate. I walked around the side of the house and watched him. Was he a thief who had broken in? Then I recognized him. It was Paul, the man whom Mom said she was no longer seeing. He got into his car and drove off. Then I realized what had been happening. Mom was still seeing Paul. She had been cheating on my dad all along. And worst of all, she had been getting me to lie to Dad to cover for her. I stormed into the house and confronted Mom. She admitted that she never had a second job. She had been seeing Paul all this time. She said it was my dad's fault. If he hadn't been spending all of their money, then she wouldn't have had to find another man to look after her. The next few days at home were really weird. Paul was around more and more, but I didn't see anything of Dad. He didn't even call me to see how I was. Paul bought me a new phone and gave me money for when I was out with my friends. He took us out to restaurants, and Mom bought herself lots of new clothes. Not having to worry about money felt really good, but I still missed Dad. Then, Mom told me she and Dad were going to get divorced, and she would have full custody of me, which meant I would never have to see him again. She could then tell everyone that she was with Paul, and the three of us would be happy together. Mom went to the lawyers that morning, leaving me to go to school. But when I got there, all I was thinking was how something so important was going on, and I wasn't there. So I snuck out of class and biked into town. I found the lawyer's office and demanded to see my parents. The receptionist was surprised and told me that I should go back to school, but I didn't listen. In the end, she took me up to see them. They were in a room, sat opposite ends of the table, glaring at each other until I walked into the room. Dad got up and ran over to me and gave me a big hug. He asked me why I hadn't answered any of his letters and why I had blocked him on my mobile. I was confused. I hadn't blocked him. Then I realized that the new phone Paul had got me must have had Dad's number blocked. They were making me believe that Dad hadn't tried to contact me. I looked at Mom, who was staring at the floor. I realized that she hadn't just been lying to Dad. She had been lying to me as well. What kind of mom wants to stop a daughter from seeing her dad? I knew that I had to make the biggest decision of my life. I turned to the men in suits and told them that I didn't want to live with my mom. I wanted to live with my dad. They all looked at me in shock. That was a couple of years ago, and now my life is very different, and I'm finally starting to feel happy again. After the divorce, my dad and I moved into an apartment, and our old family home was sold. The apartment is small, but I'm happy here. Dad told me that the reason we were so poor was that mom used to spend so much money on herself. Dad had tried to hide it from me so that I didn't have to worry about it, whereas mom had lied and told me it was all dad's fault. I don't see much of mom now. She moved in with Paul after the divorce and refused to speak with me at first as I had chosen dad over her. Sometimes she would send me lavish presents to try to win me back, but life isn't about presents. All I wanted was a family who loved each other. Now, that's what I have with my dad, and I know that dad would never, ever get me to lie for him. So, what do you think of my story? Did your parents go through a bad breakup too? Tell me about it in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.